Hello, my name is Arina Rivo. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I would like to share with you where and how I obtained the free yarn. This yarn is a mixture of wool and mohair. It used to be a crop top sweater that I purchased in the late 90s. This is a very soft 100% cotton yarn that used to be my husband's sweater. This is a mohair blend that used to be a cardigan that I purchased in the late 90s. It just went out of fashion. I unraveled it, washed the yarn, and then rewound it into the balls, and now it's ready for knitting. I used these two tools, a skein winder and a ball winder, that saved me a lot of time and work. So how do I know which item I can unravel and which one I cannot? And I'll show you a couple of examples. Let's say you take a sweater and turn it inside out, and you will find the seam looks like this, with some stitching over the edge and also some fibers sticking out from the edge. This means that the manufacturer made the fabric first and then cut it into different shapes and sewed it together. Just like regular sewing, instead of using the fabric, they used a knit fabric. You can still unravel this item, but you will end up with very short length of yarn, and it wouldn't work for a sweater or a shawl. Maybe for something small, like a placemat or a toy, or for embroidery. This is another example of a seam that is identical to a crochet seam. Also, if you notice, the edge of the knit fabric is intact, there is no additional stitching. And on the other side, the seam looks like a sequence of short stitches. This seam is very easy to remove. And after removing the seam, you can unravel the sweater and obtain a lot of continuous length of yarn. And you can use the yarn to make anything big, like a sweater, a shawl, or anything else. I made this sample for you using a contrasting colored yarn for the seam. It's the same kind of seam as in the store-bought sweater, but I made the stitches larger. So it will be easier for you to see how I'm going to undo the seam. Here is a stitch ripper, another very good tool. If you look at the stitch, it goes up, turns around, and then goes down. And the best way to undo the seam is from the top of the stitches and in this direction. Let's say I select one of the stitches and I very carefully pull it away from the knit fabric, making sure I don't accidentally cut any of my yarn. And now I cut that stitch. And then when I look at the other side, I pull a little bit that thread to identify the stitch and free that stitch from the neighboring stitches. And actually, to avoid cutting my good yarn, I will use a blunt tapestry needle. And pull that thread to this side. Now you can see I have a free stitch sticking up. And now I'm going to do this. I pull my thread and ring. It's all done. That's it. And see, if I try to do this from the other end, it just wouldn't work. So again, I go from the top of the stitches and simply pull the thread, and that's it. Now I can unravel this sample swatch, wash the yarn to straighten it, and I can use it for something else. Now you're going to think I'm completely crazy, and you will be right, because it's official, I am a yarn junkie. I just cannot throw away any good yarn, and I will try to save it, reuse it, use it for something else. That's who I am. Here is one of the examples. You see, actually it's about 50 balls of yarn that I used for the sweater that I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. Both yarns are a high quality mohair boucle that was too good to throw away. The dark colored yarn is from a sweater I bought in the late 90s. It was a store-bought sweater, and the white yarn is, it used to be a cardigan that I made in the early 90s. So I salvaged whatever I could from those two pieces, washed the yarn, and by combining the two colors, there was enough to make one sweater. This is a work in progress. The sweater was made top down in the round, so I wasn't worried that I will not have enough yarn to finish it. I started with a caul-like neck, and after I finished the yoke and the sleeves, I continued with the body until I used up all my yarn. And this is a close view of the knit fabric. Because I had more of the dark colored yarn than the white, I used the darker colored yarn for the collar and a part of the yoke, and also for one of the cuffs. And for the rest of the sweater, I alternated one row of the darker yarn and one row of the white yarn to make it work. Here I turned my sweater inside out because I wanted to show you the wrong side. In particular, that despite the fact that I used almost 50 balls of yarn to make this sweater, I have no visible knots. This is where I was changing the colors. One row of the dark color and one row of the white to achieve the stripy effect. And same on the other sleeve. So the sleeve is stripy, but the cuff is a solid color. And here is where I was changing the balls of yarn to make my stripes. This is my new sweater. I had a lot of fun planning and making it. I love the yarn it's made of. It makes me feel so good that I salvaged it and can enjoy it again. I hope you liked this video, and as always, happy knitting!